Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a little bit of technical analysis on Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency markets, and more specifically, we're going to be talking about Bitcoin because, as we know, for the last 2 months or so, Bitcoin has seen some very, very low volatility, and while I don't necessarily think that's about to come to an end in a big way, I think we may be about to see some kind of move coming out of Bitcoin, because as we can see here, Bitcoin has been in this triangle consolidation pattern for the last month and a half or so, and one, we're coming very close to the end of it, and also two, as we can see right here, Bitcoin is very much trading up against the level of resistance rather than down here against the level of support. And as we've talked about in the past, one of the most important things in technical analysis is understanding how a market will break support or resistance. And one of the ways that you can determine whether a market will break a level of support or resistance is simply to see where the market is testing. And the market has been testing the resistance a lot. So I think we may be about to see some kind of bullish breakout here. We're going to be discussing all of that and more in today's video. So if you enjoyed today's video, definitely consider dropping a like and hitting that subscribe button. But without much further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. Bitcoin is currently trading around $6,345, up about $13 over the last 24 hours or so. We haven't seen a whole lot of price action come here over the last couple of days, although we have seen Bitcoin be slightly more volatile than it was several weeks ago when Bitcoin was basically just trading perfectly sideways here around the level of support of $6,400. I do like seeing that indeed. One thing I also wanted to point out is that Bitcoin is kind of mirroring history right here, where we saw a more volatile bit of sideways trading action around 6,500 right here, and we had this little inverse Bart Simpson pattern, as I've heard it called before, and then we went back to trading sideways, and now we're looking at a miniature version of that. It's almost like we're making fractals of ourselves and going sideways doing that, and it looks like we would continue trading sideways out of this, which of course would be a break of this downtrend of resistance if we were to continue that trend. That's one thing that's bullish, but also I do think we're going to break bullish out of this in a slightly more volatile way, guys. You have to realize the market has some very low volatility right now, very low volume right now, bar one cryptocurrency, which we'll be talking about in a second. And I'm not expecting a massive major rally coming out of this. The kind of bullish, well, not even bullish, just the kind of volatility that we've seen over history in Bitcoin is going to take time to come back into the space, because part of the reason volatility and volume is so low is because so many people have left the space, and we need time for them to come back. But even with that in mind, I do think we're going to see some kind of bullish move to the upside here coming over the next couple of days. Let's go ahead and do the crypto market recap, and then we'll get back on into Bitcoin. There's not a lot we want to discuss on Bitcoin in today's video, so this video might be a bit short, but there is one thing I want to talk about here on CoinMarketCap, and that would be Bitcoin Cash. Because if we short by change over the last 24 hours here, we'll see that most of the market is pretty flat. We see just about the same amount of green as red. It's a pretty neutral market, but Bitcoin Cash is sticking out like a sore thumb here, up about 15% in the last 24 hours. That's the kind of move that you would expect to see during a bull market or some kind of rally during this bear market, and that's not really mirroring with the rest of the market. So what's going on there with Bitcoin Cash? Well, there's a hard fork coming up scheduled for November 15th on Bitcoin Cash. I'm not going to be getting into the specifics on that just yet, but as that approaches, I will be covering that on the channel, so definitely hit that subscribe button if you would like to see coverage of that, and tell me in the comment section down below what you'd like me to talk about as the Bitcoin Cash hard fork comes up. Anyway, the rest of the other things that we want to talk about here are the normal things. Bitcoin is currently trading across all exchanges around $6,360 with a daily volume of around $4 billion. That's looking all right. I like seeing it above $4 billion. We're not quite there yet, but I have a feeling that's going to go above $4 billion here pretty soon. We may be above it as I click refresh. We're not. But I do like seeing that climb a little bit, because we saw Bitcoin's volume hovering around $3.3 billion when Bitcoin was trading sideways over here. Definitely not a lot of volume, especially considering where Bitcoin's volume has been before. This has been well on into the 11 digits, up above $10 billion for a very long time going into the bull market in 2017. And we haven't seen that as of late, and I would like to see that volume come back in a big way. And Bitcoin is only up by about 0.11% over the last 24 hours, but the good news is we are up. Bitcoin isn't down, and I like seeing that, and that does play back into what we're about to discuss on the chart. Ethereum is over $200 across all exchanges, which I like to see. $200 isn't really a major technical level of support and resistance on Ethereum, simply because we've broken it so many times, but it is kind of that one of those psychological levels of support that when a market is above it, you're a little bit more bullish, and when a market is below it, you're a little bit more bearish. I like seeing that we're above $200 on Ethereum. It's kind of similar to how we have $200 billion on market capitalization. It's not really a level of support or resistance, but it's just kind of something that you want to be above, because it typically it lends it lends itself to the bullish argument in this little never-ending debate that you're having between the bulls and the bears. I do like seeing us be above that. Ethereum's up by about 0.14% over the last 24 hours. XRP is hovering around 45 cents. I want that to stay over 45 cents because I have a trade in here. I talked about that several videos ago about how I have a trade just above 7,000 Satoshis, which correlates to 45 cents on XRP, and I do think that that's probably going to hold at least for a little while. We can see XRP's coming down here and trading around this quite a lot, which does concern me because that's kind of what you see sometimes when you're about to see a level of support broken. But if that does hold, then that would be a pretty good trade in my opinion. Anyway, I believe that's just about everything we wanted to cover here on CoinMarketCap. If we sort by change over the last 24 hours, as we can see, we don't have any double-digit losers, only Polymath down by about 5%. Not really a whole lot going on in the market today, guys. You've probably noticed on the channel the videos have been a bit shorter over the last couple of months. That's really just because there's not as much to cover on the cryptocurrency markets right now because there's not a whole lot of volatility. I've been trying to do some more longer-term technical analysis. I've been trying to do some more fundamental analysis so that we have some more interesting stuff to talk about because as far as the long-term technicals are concerned, I do still think there's a lot to discuss. But on the short-term markets, that's why I haven't been doing as much short-term TA, simply because there isn't as much short-term TA to do. Tell me in the comment section down below if you like that longer-term technical analysis and fundamental analysis and news kind of stuff that I've been trying to do more as of recent. I do like doing that anyway. Anyway, now let's go ahead and get back onto the TA for today's video, which has to do with this triangle pattern. I've talked about this triangle pattern a lot, but there is one thing that I haven't talked about, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video, and that's the fact that the triangle pattern has seen Bitcoin trade against the level of resistance for most of it. We have seen that Bitcoin has been up here testing this level of resistance over and over and over again, and not really the level of support. We've only come down to the level of support once in the last couple of weeks, in the last couple of months, really. I said once, I meant twice. We've only really come down here once and twice, and we haven't really seen that many tests on it. You could kind of call this a test back here. I wouldn't. That's not quite close enough to call that a test in my opinion, but it does depend on how you draw this. But my point is that Bitcoin hasn't really been testing this a whole lot, and it has, in fact, been testing the level of resistance a lot. And typically that is indicative of something because what I've talked about in many, many videos, I talk about this a lot, and I'm going to show you the great example that I always use back over here. One thing I talk about in a lot of videos, and I have a video talking about this in the course, is one way that you can the ways that you can determine what is a strong and weak level of support and resistance. And when you see a market test a level of support or resistance over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, it doesn't really matter how strong that level of support or resistance is. Eventually, it's going to break. And I almost always use this example here in the second half of July here in 2018 when Bitcoin was running here up to $7,500 and just kept testing this level of resistance. We came up here once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, and then on the 8th time or so, depending on what you call a test, we eventually got through it. Because eventually, when you test a level of support or resistance enough times, something's going to give. I've said this so many times. I'm just saying this for the people that haven't heard me say it before. Whenever you're testing a level of support or resistance that much, eventually a whale is going to come in and short the market to just into oblivion, or they're going to buy the market and shoot it up to the moon. Something. You could see some kind of manipulation come through. You could see someone, a big whale come in on a low volume period, like during the nighttime on a U.S. exchange. Whatever may happen, eventually you're going to see that level of resistance be broken. It's almost like the level of support or resistance has a health bar, and eventually that health bar gets taken down and withered down every time it gets tested, and eventually it just breaks. And that's what I think we're seeing right now on the Bitcoin market over here in the more recent history, because Bitcoin has been coming up here and testing this level of resistance over and 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 over again. And we've seen it happen 3 times here in the last couple of days. We saw Bitcoin come up once, twice, 3 times. If you draw this a little bit better, then it looks like we've already tested it several times and gotten above it just a little bit. Of course, this is kind of a vague, longer-term downtrend, so you can kind of fiddle with how you draw this downtrend. But the point is, we've tested it a lot, and that does lead me to believe that we're probably going to see some kind of breakout above it. Now that I've said that I think we're going to see some kind of breakout out of it to the bullish side rather than the bearish side, I want to specify what I mean by breakout because I don't want people getting the wrong idea and thinking that we're about to see Bitcoin go to the moon. I very much don't think that. We've seen very, very low volume in Bitcoin as of recent memory, and we've seen volume continue to drop and drop and drop. I said volume. I meant volatility, excuse me. We've seen volatility continue to drop in a very major way. We saw a lot of volatility over here, a lot of volatility over here, a little bit less over here, quite a bit very quickly right over here. But then we didn't see a whole lot of volatility here, and that trend continued for a little while. We saw Bitcoin's volatility very low right here. We saw extremely low volatility right here, and we've seen a similar level of low volatility right here. And if you look back over the entire year, we've seen that volatility has been dropping as a trend for the entire bear market, and that's what you expect to see in a bear market. Nothing surprising there. But my point is, that's not all going to turn around in the next couple of days. We've seen volatility continue to drop for the entire year, and just because we're coming here to the end of this triangle pattern doesn't mean it's going to come back in the way that with the amount of volatility that we saw 6 months ago, for example. When you do break a downtrend of resistance, or when you do break an uptrend of support, typically you see a more major move. So if we don't trade straight sideways out of this like we've seen Bitcoin do in recent memory, then we probably would see some kind of little breakout, probably just a couple $100, maybe up here to $6,500 or so. I'm not expecting a major rally like we saw over here with the Tether FUD, but I do think we're going to see this break bullish and this downtrend of resistance be invalidated over the next week or so. So take that into consideration when you're doing your trading and your technical analysis. Like I've said in many videos, I don't think we're going to break this uptrend of support simply because it's so strong and simply because I think it's very well defended. We haven't come down here and tested it all that much, and it is a very important level of support that I think a lot of people are defending. So too is the flat level of support at $6,000. I don't see either one of those levels of support being broken right now, and honestly, I think the bears are mostly gone from the space. I definitely think that the bulls are slightly more powerful, just ever so slightly stronger. I think they're starting to get back in their groove. They're starting to realize they're starting to take control back from the bears. And I think the market is just in this slow turnaround period. I've heard people refer to the President of the United States as the captain of a massive ship with a very, very small rudder, and that's kind of what it feels like with Bitcoin right now, is that Bitcoin is a very, very huge ship with a very small rudder, but when it starts going in one direction, it can start going in that direction very, very quickly because of how big the ship is. And right now, we're in this kind of turning period. We're trying to turn around. We're trying to turn from bearish to bullish, and it is going to take several months to do that, and we do have a lot of amazing fundamentals lining up to help us turn around coming here over the next couple of months and on into 2019. If you're interested in learning about the fundamentals that I do believe are going to be helping Bitcoin turn around, I do have several videos on the channel talking about why I believe the fundamentals and the news front for Bitcoin are definitely looking up. You can feel free to browse the channel and look at the different technicals the different news stories and fundamentals that I think are going to be helping Bitcoin here over the next couple of months. There is one thing that I do want to talk about here at the end of the video, and that has to do with the Cryptocurrency Technical Analysis Academy. I'm not going to put an exact date on this, but within the next 2 weeks or so, there's going to be about 5 new videos released to the Cryptocurrency Technical Analysis Academy. And as I've always planned, since there's going to be a lot more videos in the course, and since there's going to be a lot more content, the price is going to be raising from $99 to $149. So for any of you guys who are already in the course or who get in the course before that price rises, and I'll tell you the exact day when it gets a little closer, all of you guys will not have to pay any more money. You will get access to every single video that is ever uploaded to the course into the future. But if you guys do want to get into the course for $99 instead of waiting and buying it for $149, I do recommend getting in on it in the next 2 weeks or so before I go and do that price increase. And I am going to be releasing those 5 new videos before I do that. So definitely consider going and getting in the course. There's a link to check out what we have to offer down in the description down below. Excuse my phone, I apologize for that. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this video. I do want to thank each and every single one of you for watching as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.